Let's try that again. If you guys would stay standing, we're going to read together the prayer we have been praying since the beginning of the year. And if you're with us for the first time today, we have been praying every day, my morning prayer, and we're going to read it out loud again together. So if you would read with me. Let's go. God, this is a new day. I freshly commit myself to the role you have invited me to play as you are building your church in this world. I am awestruck again today that you include me in this grand, life-giving, world-transforming endeavor. So today, I joyfully offer you my love, my heart, my talents, my energy, my creativity, my faithfulness, my resources, and my gratitude. I commit all of myself to the role you have assigned me in the building of your church so that it may thrive in this world. And I will bring it today. I will bring my best. You deserve it. Your church deserves it. It is the hope of the world. Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. Woo! Now, as I talk about what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be having some activity behind me because we're going to have a panel discussion. And we've got several people from PC3, from teenagers on up until someone who's a little older. And we're going to be talking to you today, with you today, about being that church that we just recited in that morning prayer. Are we that church? Is PC3 that church that we read about? Look, if not us, then who? I mean, who's going to be that? And this coming weekend, this coming Saturday, just a few days from now, we're going to be hosting the Silver Ring thing here in this building for the teenagers in our community. And today, we have brought in our students, our 5th and 6th grade students from Quest, and our 7th and 8th graders from Fuel. So let's give them a hand for you guys. You guys can speak up and liven it up in here. That's all right. We're good with that. Okay. So look, what we all need to be about is we all need to be about figuring out how to be this church. And so we're going to put it in the context of this Silver Ring thing. And if I was going to ask it as a question, it might be something like, how can the church, how can parents, how can grandparents, how can a child, how can we work together to make sure that God's values are communicated and God's values are embraced, specifically with the Silver Ring thing in relation to the whole idea of sex and marriage and this whole stuff. So we've got a panel up here today, and we're going to talk about that. And Stacy Doolin right here, so give it up for Stacy. She is one of our youth ministry team leaders, and she's going to guide us through this conversation. Now, depending on your age and depending on your role in life, it greatly affects how you view all this stuff. You know, when I was like 11 years old, to be honest with you, I didn't care too much about girls. Now, it wasn't that I was like disinterested in girls, but I had more interesting things to worry about, like, burning stuff and killing animals, things that 11-year-old boys do, right? But when I was in middle school, all of a sudden this girl liked me, and then everything changed from then on. It was totally different. But then I grew as a teenager, then I became a young adult, then I got married, then I had kids. And wow, does your perspective on all of this stuff change depending on your role in life. So we hope today that no matter where you are, whether you're 11 or 111, that we're going to hit where you are, and we're going to talk about your role in all this. Now, when it comes to this whole issue, there's nothing quite like being the father of a teenage daughter. So take a look at this video.
And now, Laws of the Father.
Law number 5204, appendix number 2, footnote number 18. Be afraid. Be very afraid. It takes very little for me to mistake the sound of your car in the driveway for a chopper coming in over a rice paddy near Pyongyang. War has made me a crazy man, so the voices in my head frequently tell me to clean my guns as I wait for you to bring my daughter home. As soon as you pull into the driveway, you should exit the car with both hands in plain sight. Speak the perimeter password, announce in a clear voice that you have brought my daughter home safely and early. Then return to your car. There is no need for you to come inside. The camouflaged face in the window is me.
This has been Laws of the Father.
I think it's your
I
mic.
think it's your mic.
Okay,
So you can see from this that I made up that particular law right there. And that's why my daughter's never been on a date.
This is ad-libbing. That's what this
That's
is.
exactly right.
Okay.
Yay!
Okay, yay!
You don't notice the tech team until something goes wrong.
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. And I know the person, so we'll take care of that later. Okay, so this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun because we are joined by lots of different generations in the room today. And I just think this is so important for people to be sitting side by side to talk about this issue. So I'm just going to say it right away. We're going to be talking about sex,
Yay!
dating, and marriage. And so I want to ask this panel that I'm about to introduce to you, I want you to be thinking about this. Why is this so awkward? Why do we have such a struggle talking about this? That's why we're doing this today. So who's going to be up here today talking about this very awkward topic with grace and wisdom? So I want to introduce the panel. Tony is going to be talking up here. Now he comes at this with a perspective of being a father, teenage son, almost teenage daughter, and another little daughter. And he has gobs, right, of experience in youth.
Technically right.
Gobs
yes.
is the technical term. Okay, that's on the resume, gobs of youth experience.
That's right.
Lena is one of the youth ministry leaders here, and she has a teenage daughter. This would be Jacqueline sitting next to her daughter. And Jacqueline, you are a senior, is that right? And you have a brother, so he is in 6th grade. Alexander, okay, he's sitting out there somewhere, we hope. And then we have Nancy. Nancy is one of our small group leaders here. She's on the leadership team, and she is teaching some courses. She has been doing lots of things this morning. So she is here to talk about sex, dating, and marriage. I'm going to say that as many times as I can to get you feeling comfortable that that's what we're going to be talking about. Because who I'm about to introduce next, Billy, this is one of his favorite topics.
That's exactly right.
So Billy is here today to say who knows what, and we're going to go with that. All right? So as a father who has raised 3 teenagers, and they are adults now, and then also, of course, his wisdom with all the problems that we bring to him on a regular basis because we did not do the things that we are probably supposed to be doing and talking about today. So we're going to start with this. Why do we think this topic is so awkward? What makes this topic, sex, dating, marriage, awkward? For you personally, or for anyone? What's awkward about it?
I think it's easy for us to talk about the color of our hair and how tall we are and our grades and all those things that are kind of just out there and pretty much factual. But when we get to the things about feelings and our very basic needs and desires, those are the things that are harder for me, at least.
Okay, thank you. Lena?
I know as for myself, it's extremely awkward to talk to my children about sex. It's just one of the reasons why is because I was really never talked about that topic with my parents. So I had to learn how to talk about sex.
And by children, you're talking about the ones sitting shoulder to shoulder with you. So
Yes.
when we talk about awkward, Jacqueline, you could say the same.
Yeah, really awkward. So my mom is a very in-your-face person. She'll be like, "Are you having sex? What are you doing? Are you doing this right way?" So like, it's just really weird to think that the sex and my parents, and I just don't want to talk about it with them at all. Like, just no.
Okay, so right now, you know that you do not have it worse than her. Okay, so you can handle this. She is up here on stage talking about this. Okay, so it is awkward. You guys didn't say anything about that. Do you think it's awkward?
I think it is not as awkward as it used to be. It's a private, intimate thing, and I think the nature of that is what has made it difficult to talk about. And we're not all raised on farms anymore, where we know what's going on by the time we're 4 years old if you're raised on a farm, but nobody is anymore. And it's like, where does the meat in the grocery store come from? It's like you're not exposed to it. But now it's just out there in culture, and so there's good and bad with that. I think it's good because it's easier to talk about. It's bad because it's so in your face. It's lost its specialness. So that's what I think.
That's what he thinks about that. All right, well, thank you. Now, you mentioned something. You mentioned about how it's different now than it used to be. One of the things that we brought to this panel is multi-generational representation. And I'm going to ask Nancy, if you would, please. She's so surprised we talked about this. Nancy, can you tell us a little bit about when you had the experience, let's say when you were a senior in high school, when you were a teenager as Jacqueline, what was your take on your perspective of your culture and your decisions?
One of the things, there are many things that probably differ from today. One of the things was that guys always asked girls for dates. Girls never asked guys except for Sadie Hawkins kinds of things. We did a lot of activities, not only going to the movies and that kind of thing, but many times dates were just going back to my parents' house or his parents' house and watching TV. And that meant there was one TV in the house, and it was in the living room. There were no bedroom TVs, and there was no nudity, there were no four-letter words, so you did not need to be embarrassed watching it with your parents. Another thing that probably is different is when I went on a date, I had absolutely no expectation, no thought that I would ever end up having sex with a guy before the evening was over. If the chemistry was right, a few kisses would be all right. But never thinking that that was going to be an outcome of the date. There were those we knew, but words like being easy, being a teaser, sleeping around, those words that were things that you did not want on your social resume.
Okay, thank you. Now, we're going to fast forward a few years, and Jacqueline's already been asked this question, so this shouldn't surprise her. But I want you just to share with the audience. So that was then, this is now. Talk about that.
Yeah, dating now is very spontaneous. People just do it because they have to have their boyfriend or their girlfriend because everyone else is doing it. I think the dating concept has gotten lost in our generation because I was taught dating, you were looking for your spouse in like a long-term relationship, not just someone you met one day and the next day you're already like dating. Aside from that, I think in our generation, sex is not a surprise to people anymore, unfortunately, because you see on TV, people talk about doing it all the time, and it's just something that you do and it's like cool to do it. And the sex is like lost in our generation because it was a gift from God for a married couple, but now it's just everywhere.
That was well said.
That was very well said. And to put this in perspective for you, Jacqueline is an extremely well-spoken young woman. But when she says things like, for that generation, for this generation, that comes with training with her. I want to just have Lena and Jacqueline maybe talk a little bit together. Where does Jacqueline, a senior in high school, get these ideas? What causes you to say these things? Like, tell me a little bit about your relationship and your family and your mom. What influences you in your dating decisions?
My parents have really influenced me because they were the ones who, like straight from the get-go, taught me how to give myself boundaries and self-respect and how you're really supposed to date someone. And they're also a really great example of like a married couple under God because they both waited and they really did everything that God intended marriage to be about. So they like really influenced me because I want to like be like that. I want to wait till I get married and things like that because I see how special it is for me.
Okay, so Lena, I've asked you this before, but how did you get to be so wise?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, the parenting thing is not an easy thing. And one of the main things that I've learned as a parent is that you can't do it alone. Us being in community with other people, and that's with people in our church, with our accountability group, with our small groups, my circle of moms that I have that I can call when I need help and I can't answer a question or guide my kids with something. And I also have people in their lives Like, for instance, my daughter's in a life group, and she has her peers that hold her accountable. My son goes to small group here on Sunday mornings, and he has a great small group leader that mentors him. So this is not to be made to do alone. And my kids are extremely blessed, and so are we, because it's a whole community. It's the whole church to do it together to raise our kids. So that's how I got wise was from other people.
Okay, thank you.
I want to spin off on a phrase you use there. All three of my kids are in college at UCF in Orlando. And all of the friends that they run with, if this room was filled with people that they ran with, they would look very strangely and listen very strangely and respond to the phrase you use of, how did you get to be so wise? In their minds, they're doing what's wise. They're sleeping with each other to try to figure out who their lifetime partner will be. Why wouldn't you do that? See, I go over every week and lead a life group over in Orlando, and as I start interacting with these students, this is what I know. They think they're doing what is wise. And it took me back, I'm 50, and it took me back when I was in high school. I remember when I was in a leadership class as a senior in high school, and we were discussing morals and values. And the issue came up of sexuality, should you be sexually involved? So I'm in the fairly conservative South in Georgia, although I was in an Air Force town, so a mix from people all over the nation. But pretty much everyone in that room said, yeah, I think that you probably ought to have sex with somebody before you get married. Well, I had become a follower of Christ just months before that discussion. And I sat there scared to death, but finally raised my hand and said, look, here's my opinion on this. I'm just learning that God says he has a better way. And that better way is to wait for sexual involvement inside of marriage. Now, as I was speaking that as a senior in high school, everybody just got quiet. They stared at me because that sure wasn't how I'd been living up to that point. And what I had to wrestle with is, am I wise or is God wise? And that was just the very beginning of my evolution to understand God's way as our designer is what's best. He has wisdom involved. But what's interesting, I just want to say, you guys are applauding. This is what's rubbing me a little bit. These people think they're doing what's wise. They're not going, I know this is wrong, but I'm doing it anyway. They don't think like that. And we have to take them where they are and try to lovingly introduce them to, there might be a better way for you to entertain and consider here.
Okay, so we're going to take that into thought, and we're going to take a look at this next video.
Hello, I'm Waiting.
And I'm not waiting. Listen, Waiting, I'm going to be gone for a while.
Where are you going?
Over to the hospital. I've got this STD virus, this itchy flare-up.
Oh, that doesn't sound too good.
STD, trichomoniasis type B? Do you know what that means? I don't know what that means. That's what the doctor said. Is B worse than A?
I don't know. I don't have to worry about any of that because I'm waiting. Is he sick too?
Oh yeah, over here we've got syphilis, LGV, and HPV. And down here, PID, pelvic inflammatory disease. Don't worry, bud, you'll be up using your body for sex in no time. He's a goner.
Okay, so there you go. You have the examples of what waiting entails and what maybe not waiting entails. And so, going back to what Billy was saying about how, the current culture is not a current culture of, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Let me go find out how to do something right. But a culture that I want us to be talking about today is, well, then how do we learn what to do then? If we see that if we're seeing this, the not waiting, then what do we do to know the waiting? And so I wanted you guys to talk a little bit about, and Lena, I'm going to ask you, you mentioned your life groups. You mentioned being in community with people and having relationships as one of the things that you do. I know a lot of times when it comes to being in community or the thought of going to a life group and sharing things, it's not fun to be doing those things. I mean, we're talking about serious issues. Lena, can you talk a little bit about what is it like to be in a community of a life group? And when we say community, we're talking about relationships with people who have your best interest in heart. What's that like to talk about such a difficult issue when sometimes you may be wrong, when you don't know the answer? What's that like a little bit? How does the life group aspect of community affect your relationship and problem solving within your family?
Actually, it helps me a lot because it makes me feel that I'm not alone. I'm trying to figure things out, and I like to talk, and I love to get other people's feedback. It just gives me comfort and security that I can have a mess of people behind me helping me with the biggest responsibility in my life, which are my kids. So to me, I feel comfortable because there is that trust and there's that confidence in there that you can go to talk to other people and they're not going to judge you because they've been there or they're going to be there soon.
Okay, Nancy?
I also grew up at a time when I felt very accountable to the community. I was raised in a farm community, and I can tell you that all of my parents' friends were quick to report to my parents, guess where I saw her? Guess what she was doing? So I had many eyes, but also many arms of support and love around me. So to be raised by a village is a great thing.
Both of you mentioned a word, or we've talked about it a lot, the word of accountability. That word was very new to me when I first started coming to PC3. And so if someone, maybe Billy or Tony, if you want to talk about that, what do we mean when we say accountability? What are we talking about, to be accountable to other people? What does that mean exactly?
Well, what it doesn't mean is that you're going to be lined up and interrogated, which, I think when we use a word like accountability, it has this like really strong connotation. I know one of the things that we have learned and are learning from the beginning of this church is, it's really about you choosing to open yourself up to other people and allow them to speak truth into your life and to hold you to the standard that you want to be held to. It's not about other people on the outside imposing their standards on you, because that just doesn't work. That's just legalism, and it's just about following the rules, and most people rebel against that kind of stuff. I know for me with this topic, as a teenager, I had no accountability whatsoever, none. I didn't even know what the word meant. And then I became a Christ follower at the end of my junior year of high school, and so really struggled with this whole issue of sexuality, and was addicted to pornography. I've told you guys, if you've been here a while, you know that story. And accountability would have been really great for me at that point, and I would have welcomed it, but I didn't know that. I was in an environment where you didn't talk about your problems. You were just supposed to be good. And man, so I struggled for years and years, way into my marriage, before I realized I could open up and have people help me. And so it's not just true in this area, it's true in every area. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Nancy, in preparing for this today, we talked a little bit about a story that you have with your grandson. And just to preface this, as Nancy's getting ready, one of the things that we talked about is what if your family doesn't talk to you? I mean, what if you're one of those young people, we have 5th, 6th graders, 7th, 8th graders, high school students in here. What if you're part of that family that's like, I cannot talk to anybody? Who do I talk to? And then I know some of you are sitting here going, I don't have kids. What do you want me to do about this? How can I be part of this? What's the message for me? Nancy, in talking about this, she has a story to tell about her grandson. So if you would, Nancy, just share a little bit of that.
Do we have time for 2 parts of that story?
Keep talking, Nancy.
Okay. At Christmas time, our grandson, 19, and his girlfriend were visiting us. And one evening, we were sitting around eating pizza with his dad, Dave, and me, and Daniel said, so what would you guys think if Kendall and I moved in together? And the first question, of course, was, what do you see for the future? So we talked a little bit about that and promise rings and that kind of thing. My response was, guys, thanks for just being open and letting us into your lives. It gave us the opportunity to talk about what we thought was best for them, what God thought was best for them, but also an understanding of them. Daniel said, you know, I thought you guys would be disappointed in me. Gave us the opportunity to talk about unconditional love. Daniel, you can't move outside of our love. Now, the second part of the story is Daniel started college in the fall. And on September 11th, he wrote this in Wisconsin shortly after midnight. We received it the next morning. Gonna cry. Just listen to a song about true love and people being together forever. And everyone I'm with was thinking about an ex or a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And I just picture you and Grandpa looking into each other's eyes. It is the most inspiring thing I've ever seen. And no matter what I'm going through, I'm always going to know that I'll find that one person that will make everything okay no matter what. Through being poor and supporting a family, to living in paradise and watching the sun come up every morning, you two are the most consistent things in my life. And I love you both to death. Thank you. With much love, your grandson.
Amen.
Thank you, Nancy. So as I heard that story, I thought, well, we have quite a few grandparents in the service today. We have quite a few grandchildren in the service today. And you know, that's a definite connect that you have from one generation to the next to be able to share these things in ways that parents can't do it. That's just the way it is. Just sometimes parents just won't do it, can't do it, don't know to do it. So thank you for sharing that with us.
I want to ask Nancy, you got to the place where you could have these conversations with Daniel, but my guess is you didn't start having a relationship with Daniel last year.
Absolutely. From the time he was small, he would call us at times when he was afraid. I think we listened. His parents divorced, and that was a hard thing for him. So we really became listeners. A friend of his died, and so he called. We've prayed with him on the phone. It goes all the way back to being really 4, 5, I don't know exactly, any chance that we had to be with him. So it's been an openness from very young.
Yeah,
So,
and I'd tag on to that to say, here's the takeaway I hope you're hearing from this, parents. And I get this question often of how you build a relationship like that with your children. And it really begins, as we're talking especially about difficult topics like dating and sex and that kind of thing. It starts with you opening up about your life.
Absolutely.
So very early on with my kids, I started using the word sex. I'd talk about relationships, talk about, you know, physical touch, this kind of thing, and age appropriate. So, you know, I wasn't bringing up oral sex with my 10-year-old, okay? I wasn't doing that. But you're out there, if you're surfing the internet, I was raised looking at porn magazines, all this stuff. I mean, they have questions. By the time they're 13, they're wondering about oral sex, anal sex, all this stuff. They're talking about this stuff. I guarantee you. And when I was a teenager, it's not that I thought I should talk to my parents, but no, I'm not going to. It never crossed my mind to talk about my parents, with my parents about anything that mattered, because they never talked to me about anything that mattered. So to me, they weren't even on the list. And here's what I say to parents. Many of you out there go, well, I just goofed up my life so bad. I don't want my kids to know I goofed up my life. They know you goofed up your life.
That's right.
They know. I can't tell you how many conversations I've been into that go, well, we don't want to tell our son who's 19 that we had sex before we were married and got pregnant. The guy can do math. He's going to figure it out. For crying out loud, start talking about this thing. And what I'd say to parents is, you start opening up. What I did with my kids to start with was not lecture them. I started talking to them about what it was like to be 6, what it was like for me to be 10, what it was like for me to be 12 and 13. And look, just to be real candid, you can go out of church today and say, the pastor said masturbation. Look, I can tell you, I'm the one who brought that up. Go, yeah, I remember about that journey and that process with me and I started talking about masturbation, what the whole thought process was, yeah, you're freaking out because you wouldn't even think about talking to your kid. That's how you begin the conversations, is talk about you. Don't lecture them. Get it? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll ask your kids. We'll find out. Yeah.
Tony, you look like you were about to say something.
I think we need to segue to that really good video.
We're going to segue to that really good video. We're going to be taking a look at a video because, you know, when Billy says things like this, I got to tell you, I'm sitting on stage with him. These things are still shocking. Okay, I'm sitting up here. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old at home. And until a couple years ago, in getting to hear Billy say things like this, I never even crossed my mind that these would be conversations I'd be having with my kids until they were 12. And then, as Tony reminded me, is by that time, it's too late to start.
Well, it's never too late to start.
Well, yeah.
But if you're going
But if the goal was what I wanted the goal to be
right
now, then it's not too late to start those open conversations. So, you know, so the question then becomes is, well, who's going to help me? Because I don't know. I mean, I'm with Lena. I don't know. So who's going to help me? Well, PC3 exists to do that, to be the community that does this for us. As imperfect as we all are, this is what we're doing. So we have the students in here today, and we have children, we have infants, and we have K through 4th that are going on in the back. We want to show you a video of not necessarily how we're going to do this right every time, but an idea that we are going to be going with, that you're going to be hearing a lot more about. It's a concept called orange. So take a look at this video. Okay, so here's a test for you. What color do you get when you combine red and yellow? Okay, say it louder.
Orange.
Orange. Okay.
Is it orange or orange?
It's orange.
All right, just
orange.
ask.
Nothing rhymes with the word orange, by the way. Do you guys know that? Really? Nothing. You're trying and nothing. So, 2 influences. The light of the church. It's true. The light of the church, the yellow light of the church, combined with the red, passion and emotional family, combined together, creates orange. Now, what does that mean for you sitting there who are saying, well, I'm not a parent. I don't have kids. I did that already. I want to talk about that a little bit. This is an issue that I'm passionate about, but I also feel like we have some thoughts up here. Lena, we talked about this a little bit. If you would like to start a little bit. What does orange, yellow and red being orange and combined together, what does that mean for people at PC3?
When I think of Orange, I just think of basically doing life together, doing community together. Parents, grandparents, legal guardians, kids of all ages, just coming together and being connected to know how to raise the next generation. Because this generation needs our help. They're going through stuff that we have never gone through. I feel for them, I really do, because I feel like they're very underestimated. And I think it's important for us as adults and an older generation to help the new generation that's coming out on guiding them and loving them and supporting them. So that's how I see Orange.
Okay, so on any given Sunday morning, we have, let's say, 25 5th and 6th graders. We have 25 7th and 8th graders. We have high school students numbering 20 across the building. We have 30-something K through 4th graders. We have 30-something. We have over 100 under 18s in the building right now and on any given Sunday. So when we talk about leveraging this influence that parents have, I can't do this by myself. And I know a lot of you, when you pick up your kids, you want to be doing those things. We want to be doing the right thing. Like Billy, you were talking about, we want to be having these conversations. Can you talk a little bit, Billy, about, you said that it starts at 4 or 5 years old. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the, be specific, like give us something that we can do with our youngest of young children that creates these moments of talking, that not necessarily even about sex, dating, and marriage, but what are some other things that you might have talked about with your children that would help us foster those kinds of open environments in our family?
Specifically, you first have to just grasp the reality that relationships are built with quality of time and quantity of time. But the younger your kids are, quantity is quality, plain and simple. They just want to be doing things together. So you have to do things with your kids, because then opportunities come up specifically to talk about certain things. So, for instance, my wife and I made specific decisions when we moved here, our oldest was a kindergarten student. So we decided not to put him on the school bus, not primarily because we were worried about what would happen on the school bus, but we adjusted our life schedule to take him to school and bring him home from school, and did that all the way until they could drive, so that we could have conversations with them going to school and coming from school. Now again, that wasn't a legalistic thing, it wasn't a negative thing, it was a proactive deal. So as they would talk about, they'd come home and talk about an argument that they got in school. Then we would be able to say, and we start with this, I remember what it was like to be in your age. I remember one time stealing 15 cents off someone's desk when I was in the 2nd grade. And I remember going through that concept of the teacher saying, you know, somebody needs to get honest about this, and I had to make a decision on whether I was going to be honest. Well, that led to conflict with who I stole the money from. It led to conflict on the inside. So I started off going, I'm having a conversation about what I did wrong and how that shaped me. So what I'm saying is you create opportunities, and then just remember what it was like to be there and talk specifically about those things with your kids. It's really not complicated.
It's not complicated, but it's not necessarily easy.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think for the church as a whole, wherever you are, whatever stage of life you're in, again, whether you're 11 or 111, you've got to start opening up and getting honest in relationships. If you think PC3 is all about what happens in an hour on Sunday morning, that's just the surface. That's just the open door to get into this church. It's about community. It's about relationships. And when you're in a relationship with somebody, or you're in multiple relationships with people, and you're honest, and you can talk about the God perspective. It's one thing for me to pray. Just this morning, I mean, I was kind of stressed out this morning. My wife is in Atlanta with her father, who's very ill. He may be getting ready to pass on, and my dog that I love, who I'm ready to wish I didn't have right now, is very, very sick at home. And I'm coming in here and I'm all la la la. And so I talked to somebody and I said, look, I need you to pray for me right now, because I am so distracted. I can't focus. And so, so that's what I'm talking about. And that's just one little thing all the time with people. Who are you doing life with? And as you learn to do life with people, then you, honestly, most of us probably need to start outside of our family because our families are so screwed up to start with. You know what I mean. You pick your friends, but you can't pick your family, right? So start somewhere, and then you work this stuff into your family unit.
Yes, Nancy.
I just want to say an obvious, but from another generation, and that is what we live speaks so much more loudly to them than what we say. And I would just hope that by young people seeing some of us in those older years still active and interested in them, I hope that that has an impact in how they look at life in general.
Yeah, and I guarantee you it does, because I haven't been in youth ministry since I was a teenager. This is one thing I can guarantee you. Teenagers, if you're not cool, they know you're not cool. Don't try to be cool, okay? It's just not happening, okay? But this is what everybody appreciates. Everybody appreciates you being real, you being you being authentic. So it doesn't matter how cool or uncool you are, how old or young you are. It's about being authentic.
And I also want to add, I don't want anyone to look at our relationship as a perfect picture mother-daughter relationship because we've gone through our ups and downs, our emotional breakdowns, hard life issues that we've had to overcome. But because we have people in our lives to help us through this, it made us stronger. We were able now to really connect. And I feel extremely confident that now when I release her to the world that she's going to be okay. So, but it's a hard work. I mean, it's never going to stop, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
and just really quick, I used to really have a hard time even coming to my mom and talking about simple things. Maybe school, I'm stressed out or something. And her being real with me and her understanding that, her explaining that she's been there and helping me through all of this really influenced me, because I know that she's always going to be there, no matter if I disappoint her or if I make her upset, that she's still going to love me, because she just wants me to grow up to be the best young lady that I can be in God's eyes. So my parents talking to me really helped me through my high school years, definitely, especially. So I know that other kids who are maybe just starting their freshman year, their parents talking to them can really help them get through, I hate to say it, but the worst 4 years of your life.
Sorry, if you're in 8th grade, looking forward to 9th grade.
Well, look, middle school was way worse for me than high school. I don't know about y'all, yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Lena, about how you don't want people to take away an opinion of this is a perfect relationship. How could I do like that? That's, well, that's them. That's not, I'm in a group with Lena, and I remember a day when she called quite a few people, and she said, I need help with Jacqueline. And I remember thinking, I don't have a teenage daughter. I have no idea how to help. I mean, I really don't. I was a teenage girl, but I messed that up. I don't know how to help. So the issue ended up being something, it was a stressful situation, but I saw the two of them disagree. I saw the two of them argue, and then a team of us, there were probably 5 people in the room, talked to Jacqueline and talked to Lena about it. And then we walked away. It wasn't completely resolved. They were left to go do their best. They did it 2 weeks later or so. We followed up with it. It was completely imperfect people working on other imperfect people at a time when we had need. And like I said, I don't know. I don't have special knowledge of how to, I'm not a youth pastor. I don't know how to talk to teenage girls, right?
I don't know how to talk to teenage girls either.
Who does? But we were able to come together each in our own experience and God-provided way to be available and just be there for what was needed to be done. And that was that was neat. So I've seen you. I know you two don't have a perfect relationship.
So if you don't know what to do, you can do what Mark Twain did. So when they're 13, you put them in a barrel and feed them through the knothole.
There you go.
And when they're 17, you plug the knothole.
So there
How old's your son, Tony?
16.
Uh-huh.
So he's got a year.
That's right.
Look out.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at this verse. It's from Deuteronomy. And in trying to be the mom that I want to be with my two boys, they are still very young, a third grader and a kindergartner. And I wonder sometimes, what is it that what can I do right now? Given that I don't have answers, I mean, I may know more than they do sometimes, but I don't have all these answers. I don't have this experience, but this is the experience that I pull from. But take a look at this verse, because this one reminds me of why it's okay that God has gifted me to talk a lot. This is like my permission verse, and I really appreciate that. So for those of you who, are the talkers in your family, allow this to be your permission verse to talk about these things nonstop. And for those of you who live with the talking person, realize that this is just what God has commanded.
Okay, read the verse.
Us to do. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Thank you. Okay, listen, oh Stacy. Did you guys see that? It says, oh Stacy. Listen, oh Stacy. Listen, oh Israel. The Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving you today. All right, here comes the permission. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home, when you're on the road, car rider line, when you're going to bed, and when you're getting up. And that verse reminds me that this is where it starts. It does start. That 1-year-old, that 2-year-old, that 17-year-old. So there's your permission there. Well, we're wrapping it up, panel. Is there anything else that anybody would like to say as we close?
I would. I still think probably some of what we're talking about is a little abstract. If you're trying to find a handle on how you can, if you're a parent, this is pretty obvious. If you're a teenager, this is pretty obvious. But if you're not in that role right now, how do I do anything to make a difference? You serve the people who need the help right now. That's what you can do. And the Silver Ring thing is coming up. What you can do is you can serve by serving at the event. You give the parents the freedom to be able to go to the parenting seminar. Does that make sense? And you can serve in the back with our children, so the parents are not the only ones serving in the back, that the parents can be out here in the service sometimes too. So and to people who say, I've done my time or whatever, I just have a question. Look around at our culture. Are you really okay with the way our culture's going? Well, then you haven't done your time. You're not finished. We're not finished until God's kingdom comes. That's when we're finished. So that was my final word.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you so much for being up here today. I know sex, dating, marriage, not the easiest thing to talk about, but on that note, we're going to leave with another video.
And now, Laws of the Father.
Law number 113. The following places are not appropriate for a date with my daughter. Places where there are beds, sofas, or anything softer than a wooden stool. Places where there are no parents, policemen, or nuns within eyesight. Places where there is darkness. Places where there is dancing, holding hands, or happiness. Places where the ambient temperature is warm enough to induce my daughter to wear shorts, tank tops, midriff t-shirts, or anything other than overalls, a sweater, and a goose-down parka, zipped up to her throat. Movies with a strong romantic or sexual theme are to be avoided. Movies which feature chainsaws are okay. Hockey games are okay. Old folks' homes are the best.
This has been Laws of the Father.
So I just want to reiterate what Tony said. If you're asking yourself, well, what can I do to make a difference? What do you want me to do to make a difference? The Silver Ring Thing event is next Saturday. And we have needs for volunteers. We have needs for definitely people praying for the students that are going to be attended. So if you haven't signed up yet to serve, you can sign up to serve. If you're a cleared volunteer, you can step back after service in the Connection Center and serve. If you are a student and you have not yet invited a friend to come with you, go ahead and do that. You know, the event, you can check out the promos online. You've seen some of the promos. There's going to be some crazy stuff. The skits are crazy. There's, we're hoping for some kind of like fire, not too bad, but chainsaws, all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's an event that it's going to be a fun thing to do next Saturday night, and it's free. If you are a parent, you can bring your friend. Bring a friend. If you know someone who might just be interested in it, go ahead and invite that person to come with you. You can register online for that as well. Before I go, though, I would just also like to say that for the students that are in here, we want you to know that we have been and will be continuing to pray for you. Because as you talk about these issues with your family or with your grandparents or with anyone else that you can find, know that the people of PC3, the small group leaders, the teachers that are out there in Quest and Fuel and Ignite, the small group leaders, anyone back in the areas with the children, we know what it's like to be where you are. And we want to be there for you. So if you're seeing yourself in 5th, 6th grade, 7th, 8th grade going, I don't have a family with me that can talk to me about this stuff, that's what we are all here for. Absolutely what we're all here for. So I'm going to close in prayer for you, for the young people that are in here, those that are still in school and still absolutely on the road to making these choices. So we're going to close out in prayer right now. God, I thank you so much that I can be a part of PC3 community that values people and the relationships that you put in our lives. God, I thank you so much for these students that are here this morning. Lord, I pray for them as they're going through a week ahead leading up to the silver ring thing, that they just might have boldness to share this story with others, with their friends. I pray for their parents as their parents are trying to navigate this and figure out, well, how in the world do I talk to my kids about this? I pray for those parents and grandparents and foster parents and anyone who's in the lives of these kids. Lord, I pray for the volunteers who are getting ready to meet and talk a little bit about what it is that they're going to be doing next week. And I pray for more. I pray for the Sunday morning volunteers who serve these students so faithfully. And I pray for more to serve students faithfully. Thank you, Lord, for an openness that we can have and come to you regardless of what we've done, and you can take us to where you want us to go together. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Look, we've got just a couple more things I want to talk to you about. Tie this all into the theme. And we're going to start with our offering. So if the ushers would get into place, I want to say a couple things. You want to know how to make an investment in the generations that are coming behind us. One is giving. You heard there are over 100 people under 18-year-old in this building. The way our church operates is simple. We all give money. We take that money. We develop a budget on it. And we try to impact the community and the world through that. And we just respond to God in giving. Another thing that we do, though, that was fascinating, I'm sitting up here thinking, a course starts this Tuesday night by Alliance Financial Partners, which Eddie Herrera, Diane Witt works on our tech team. There are other people. They teach a course that's 5 weeks long, I think, that talks about finances. I've been through it. And the whole idea is to teach us how to manage finances better in a way that honors God and makes a difference in our lives and people. I'm telling you, most of you need to go through this. There's already over 20 that have signed up for this thing. You need to come and go to this. Why? My parents never talked to me about finances. They never talked to me. My dad taught me to give at church, and that impacted me. But they never talked to me about how to make a budget, why you should, how much things cost. I didn't know how much anything cost until I went off and moved out of the house by myself. How do you do that? Start talking, get some training on this, sign up and come to the course. Now, the offer today, I want to say, if you're a first-time guest, we're not expecting you to give. at this whatsoever. This is for our people to give to support what's going on here at PC3. So let's pray about the offering together. God, we just thank you that you're the ultimate giver. You've provided talents and opportunities, and we give you credit for that. So God, in our minds, it's still a tough financial time that we're living through. But God, thank you for being the one who gives us food and clothing and shelter. And thanks for this great nation that we live in. So God, as we give money here, we just ask you to keep transforming our heart to be generous people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, look, 3 things tied into what we're doing. The first is, I need 6 volunteers, I guess 6 people that are willing to help us move the walls back to get ready for this event Saturday night. I'm asking right now, what 6 people will raise your hand and say, I'll stay after service for 15 minutes and help? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. All you that raise your hands, move to the back when the service is over, and you'll get instructions from John Shelby in moving the walls back, okay? The second thing is, all of you that are cleared volunteers around here, if you don't know what that is, you're not cleared, okay? If you've had a background check, you've been cleared, there's a meeting for all the people to be involved in the silver ring thing. Come up here after the service, after this next thing I'm going to talk about. I want you to come up here, and there's going to be some training for 10 or 15 minutes on when to show up next Saturday night, that kind of thing, okay? Get it? Good. So if you're cleared, come up here and get some instructions. And then the third thing is this. We need to move all these chairs out. So how many of you are sitting in a chair? Let me see your hands. Okay, here's what we need you to do. When we're released here in just a couple of minutes, we need you to take your chair and walk to the back here to your right. Okay, stage left way up there. And we're going to stack the chairs in stacks of 6. Okay, so how many of you can count to 6? Okay. You're going to stack them up back there in stackable chairs, and so we need to move all the chairs out of here so we can create the room for an event that Epic Church is doing here tonight, and then we're doing the silver ring thing next Saturday. Okay, now, I want to close out again. You've heard some action points, and we prayed a prayer when we came in here today, and I want you to know these cards are available for you back in the Connection Center if you want to pick one up that has this prayer printed on it. And the idea is to pray this every morning between now and Super Bowl Sunday, okay, which is next Sunday. So if you don't have a copy of this, you can pick it up at the Connection Center. But I want us to stand together, and I want us to read this with a real focus on you're praying this to God in application of what we've been talking about today, okay? So let's go with full voice together. God, this is a new day. I freshly commit myself to the role you have invited me to play as you are building your church in this world. I am awestruck again today that you include me in the grand life-giving, world-transforming endeavor. So today, I joyfully offer you my love, my heart, my talents, my energy, my creativity, my faithfulness, my resources, and my gratitude. I commit all of myself to the role you have assigned me in the building of your church so that it may thrive in this world. And I will bring it today. I will bring my best. You deserve it. Your church deserves it. It is the hope of the world. So the final thing, put this into practice by doing the 1-minute thing as you take your chair back there. Look for someone you don't, listen. Look for someone you don't know or don't know well and have a conversation while you take your chair to the back. Have a great day.